So welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we've got a special look at Blue and Gray Deluxe Edition from Decision Games. Now, when I say special look at, what I mean is Decision Games were very kind and sent us a review copy of this, and this is very early getting a hold of this. It's still up, oh gosh, at the time of recording, you can still get this at the pre-order price and things like that. But Blue and Gray, if you don't know, is one of the very oldest original kind of war game series that was out there, that was put out originally by SPI, and they had these like, they call them quadri games, little quad packs, and it would have 4 battles, and there was, I presume, 2 of them, because in this deluxe edition they have all 8 that were, I believe, in those 2 Blue and Gray boxes. Now, Blue and Gray, again, this is a tactical 2-player hex encounter American Civil War game, and so you're playing a battle. So we have Antietam, Cemetery Hill, Chickamauga, Shiloh, Chattanooga, Fredericksburg, Hooker and Lee, and Wilderness. I know a lot of you have played one, some, or all of these. This is a very well-known and well-loved system by those who, especially back in the early days of wargaming, as we know it anyway, played the hell out of these, frankly. It's something that me personally, I kind of have known about and knows that it existed, but when Decision announced, hey, we're going to do a big deluxe box of it, it was kind of like, well, it's found me at the perfect time, and so desperately wanted to kind of dive on in. I'm very excited for this box. Now, before we start, I do want to show, I actually have played a game that uses this system. So in Strategy and Tactics, which was put out by SPI, in issue number 103, there was Road to Vixsburg, and Road to Vixsburg, it's a magazine game. But you'll see, and I'll kind of keep this out and keep this handy and kind of reference it again. This is what the old map looked like. You'll see the maps will look similar to this, but they're much nicer, right? They're much nicer versions of it. Little CRT, terrain effects chart, turn track with reinforcements on it. Real simple, not super mega complicated. This was a really fun little magazine game that I played. And again, we'll get these out again in a second. Here's a look at the old counters, just kind of in the bag. They're what you might think they are. They're very thinly, finely printed. It's kind of hard to see them. They got the center cut nibs on them, so they don't look brilliant. But regardless, I set that up on my desk at work, and I played it over a couple lunchtimes solo, and it was really fun, right? It's a simple system, especially by a lot of today's standards. I think the rules are like 7 pages at most, but really it's like, I move my guys, I fight with my guys. If you've played a hex encounter war game, it's really not much more complicated than that. So just know that like there are other little games out there that have used this system, but that is not included in this one. But I've played this system, so I know that I like it. It is fun and it is light and eminently playable. So let's dive on in and we can kind of see how this stacks up against what some of those other old productions looks like. So first off, you get this massive box, right? This box is the same size as the Red Dragon Green Crescent box. Big, massive, gosh, is this 3 inches? This might even be 3 and a bit inches. It's very big. It's very heavy because this has 4 double-sided mounted map boards in it. Now, if we look on the map, it kind of displays them. And you know, 2 players, 1 to 2 hours. Again, these are small, you know, it's like a half map size, fast playing war games, not very complex at all, and it's easy to solo. You just play both sides. It's really not that big a deal. Here's kind of a glimpse at some of the counter artwork, which again, I'll pull those old counters up. They're much, much nicer. So we're going to dive on in. First up, we get a bag of bags, which we will be putting our counters into, and I will try to, if possible, divide them up by battle. I don't know if that is possible. 2 dice, 1 blue, 1 gray. You would expect nothing less. Then we have the instructions. This is the rulebook. They call it instructions because it has everything in it. And now this looks like a big old chonky book, but what we're going to look at here is the rules are 7, 8 pages. These are the rules. And I genuinely, it's like, you move guys, you pay the terrain costs, there's little zones of control, and then you shoot, and your artillery can shoot ranged and do bombards. And it's like, that's really the rules. There's not a ton of other rules. There's optional rules, there's variant rules, that's all on the back of this. There's some designer notes here, and then everything else as we get to the scenario-specific rules. Cool, here's Shiloh. Here's the Shiloh rules, the victory conditions, and the initial deployments and setup, with some different player notes. Hey, if you're the Southern player, do this. If you're the Union player, do that. Both players try to do this. Here's Antietam. Here's Fredericksburg, although Fredericksburg I might leave alone, because that will be a one-sided affair. I'll be curious to see how this plays out in the system. Hooker and Lee, which is Chancellorsville. Cemetery Hill, part of Gettysburg. Chickamauga. Chattanooga. Wilderness. And then we have 2 pages of optional rules. 2, 3, 4, 5, a bunch of variant rules, that's what they call them, sorry, I couldn't think of the word. And then they have some variant initiative and things like that, instead, because normally it's like, I do all my stuff, then you do all your stuff, but they've got some optional bits and pieces that you can put in, and they've just collated all this stuff that people have come up with over the years, through house ruling, or modules and stuff, and they just put it all in one big old nice box. Again, in a game that's 7 pages of rules. That the reality is it's very easy to get to, and eminently playable. Okay, before we get into the counters, we'll get a look at the play aids that we have here. So we have, these are the system packs, the system play aid cards. These are both identical, and it has your terrain effects chart for movement and combat results table, explanation of those, and then a sequence of play, which is literally, you do your moves, you do your fights, next person does their moves, next person does their fights. That is the system. Not super mega complicated, but there's one for each player, love that. And then we have 2 different play aids, and these are setup charts. So there's 2 for each. If you think about it, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 battles in it, right? So these are the Confederate ones, and it just tells you which units go on which hexes to start off with. The Union, again, have 2 double-sided non-unique, or unique play aids for setup, so there's 8 there as well. We have these displays, so you have a Union one, and you have a Confederate one, which has your victory point tracks on them, and exited and eliminated unit holding boxes. And then we have, if you're playing the Grand Chancellorsville option display, this is a bunch of like moving around stuff and bluffing and feinting and things like that. For reference, if we have a quick look at the old map that I have, all of that played stuff was kind of printed on here, on the edges, and the little turn track was right here, and you also use this to track victory points as well. So they've just kind of moved some of that off map onto these boxes. The next thing that we have here is 4 sheets of counters, okay? And we are going to be able to divvy these up by battle, which I really like. So if you look here, all these gray units, these are for Antietam. And all these blue units, these are for Antietam. And then we've got Cemetery Hill blue units, Cemetery Hill gray units. So you can't just punch them all out and hope for the best. You will want to be methodical with punching these. Oh, get these ones into a bag, get these ones into a bag, and kind of sort them out that way. You're going to make yourself life a lot easier. So here's all the fighting units, and there is a lot of them. Then we look at Shiloh, we've got Lexington and the Tyler down here, and then you get leaders, which have their stars on them. And then we have some kind of administrative markers as well. Not all the games use these, but not all the battles or scenarios use them. But they'll give you entrenched markers, artillery limbered, unlimbered, pinned markers, control markers, and then shattered markers, and a little game turn marker as well. Oopsies, I don't want to punch those out too badly. But here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to get a handful of these old counters out, show you what these look like. So these old ones had like they had the start setup hex printed on the back of some of these. But They have this very, very kind of fine print on them. They're perfectly serviceable. There's nothing wrong with these, and they're eminently usable. But then you pull out something like this, and they're just so bold and crisp, and they just look, they have that same classic feel, but they look much, much nicer, right? This is a much nicer to play with. I really like this deep dark blue and this light gray as well. That's almost like a blue gray. It looks very, very nice. I love this as an aesthetic. This is going to look great. Think about all this deep blue on a cool map. That's going to be wonderful to play with. And these are really thick gray core counters, and they're not center cut, right? So you'll be able to punch and clip these, no big deal, and it's going to look wonderful. And the last thing we have in here are individually sealed 4 different maps. So let's get the box out of the way for a second, and we're going to go through these. So each of these are kind of half your standard map. So these are 22 by 17, I believe, is what they are. So let's put it this way. We have the Battle of the Wilderness. You have a little key for the terrain, and you have down here your turn record track as well. But again, really nice looking map. And one more time, I'm going to pull this out. It's a big graphical upgrade compared to this, in my opinion. This is like forest, and this is rough. And then there's the terrain. I like this slightly desaturated, but I like the fresh, but only because it helps the units to stand out a bit more and less strain on the eyes. But they retain the simple charm of those old maps as well. And they just made in my opinion, they made the naming conventions a bit bolder. They reduced, so if you look, the hex grid again is less stark in contrast, as well as the numbers, just so it's a bit nicer to kind of look at. So this is Wilderness. And then on the back side, we have Hooker and Lee. That's the name of it. It's Chancellorsville. But I think the original was, and this is half of it. The other half's going to go on the other side. See if I can't find it. I will not be able to find it quickly, I know that. That's just my luck. Okay, so here we have Antietam. Again, really great. I love the look of these maps. They've done a really nice job with them. This one has space for the CRTs on it, which is nice. Here we have Fredericksburg. And I think we can stick these together, and that gives us this whole map that connects if we want to play all of this. I think this might be part of the grand one. Those maps go together. Okay, let me keep going. And then next up we have Chickamauga. Right here, just the one map for Chickamauga, which I'm looking forward to immensely. It's such an interesting battle, a soldier's battle. And then we have Cemetery Hill, which is the Battle of Gettysburg. And this is all 3 days of Gettysburg, I think. Well, yes. And then lastly, I'll be curious to see how Gettysburg plays at this scale. Like, is it reasonable? What does that look like? And then we have Shiloh. And then on the back of Shiloh, we have Chattanooga. Again, really looking forward to Chattanooga as well. Chattanooga is such an interesting relief and breakout and charging up Missionary Ridge. I mean, there's so much cool stuff that went on in this, and I'm looking forward to this one immensely. But those are the maps. To me, the maps look great. They have a classic feel to them, but they are very fresh, very crisp, real nice to look at. I mean, just think about this. With all these nice pieces laid out, it's going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to this immensely, and once again, really grateful for Decision Games' support of us in this particular instance. go pre-order this, go get a hold of this. If only for nostalgia's sake, that's a cool investment to have this really nice production of these great old games. But also, they are eminently playable, as evidenced by my Road to Vixsburg experience. I'm looking forward to these as, you know, not every game has to be the most intense, crunchy simulation. Sometimes you want to just set the guys up and you move and you fight and then you play in an hour or two and it's done. That's what this gives you in a classic feel, revamped to look and feel more modern components-wise, whilst retaining that great original charm to them that I think is a huge boon and a draw for people. So, Blue and Grey Deluxe Edition from Decision Games. You got to check this out if you're interested. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.